Hey, time to get your funny up, not your money up. My name is Funny Man, and they have finally told us what the Melee rework is gonna be, ladies and gentlemen. This is gonna be a really quick video that I'm recording as soon as I'm getting off work today because this blog post came out in the middle of my day, and we're also gonna try to do the no F word challenge because if I have to go through this and censor out a bunch of fucks, then this video is not going up tonight. But they have released a blog post detailing the reworked Melee combat system with design director Matt Lowe. That's his name. I couldn't think of it when I made the last video on it. As we've previously said, we feel Melee has two core problems we'd like to solve. We want to make Melee a more viable system of play with a fairer chance to win matches and want to ensure Melee is not frustrating for those who die to it, which has become a common point of frustration. Now, I said fully in the Crash Out on the Cash Out episode about the Melee AMA that this is an impossible task. There's no way for you to make something viable and to make people not rage towards it all at the same time, because people just rage towards everything. And Melee being viable, yeah, if you make it more viable than it already is, people are going to rage at it, and people rage at it now even though it's really not viable. So to achieve this, we've approached the rework in 4 distinct ways. 1, we've slightly increased the power potential of each Melee weapon, making it possible to have more impact in fights than before. We've introduced new mechanics that aim to gate the power behind players' skill. If the player manages to track their target well and land accurate hits, they are able to deal more damage, whereas if they are imprecise, they will deal less damage, which I think that's definitely interesting. We've rebalanced and added additional functionality to some of the bespoke secondary functions on some of the Melee weapons, such as the Riot Shield and the Dual Blades, to give these weapons more control or more distinct styles of play. We've introduced some counterplay for players when facing Melee users as another way to gate the Melee's increase in power potential. Okay, so first thoughts here is that I'm liking the fact that they didn't just say f it, pump the damage numbers, and I've already failed the no F word challenge, but they didn't just say pump the damage numbers and just deal with it later, or they didn't just say nerf the damage numbers and make all the Melee users suffer and use the F card, because of course you better be using the shooter in the shooter game. For gun users in the finals, winning 2v1 fights or even 3v1 fights is something that can be achieved from time to time, but for Melee users, they frequently face scenarios where they can get one elimination before being eliminated by another player, essentially trading kills, because they frequently don't have the time to close from one target to the next. This is very true. Of course, we do have movement options now with the shockwave and the dash on lights, but for spear users like myself, yeah, that's been a big point of contention. We wanted to change this not to make 2 versus 1 fights easy, but to increase the chances that a good Melee player playing well has a greater chance to occasionally win out in these scenarios. To get Melee to a power level where this might be possible, we've changed a number of things. First, we've done a full balance pass on all the weapons, increasing damage, modifying swing speeds, and adjusting ranges. This has increased the potential power of a majority of these weapons. Second, all Melee weapons can now lunge towards an enemy when making an attack, and the size of the lunge has been extended. Previously, when making a regular attack, if an enemy was in range, the game would lunge you up to around 3 meters towards that target to help you land the hit. This lunge now averages about 4.5 meters, but varies from weapon to weapon, and this extra range makes it much easier to get a second target or follow up on a more mobile enemy. Okay, so if we just zoom in on here, we can see that there's some shit on the reticle and a little bar underneath it, so we'll see what that is in a second. But yeah, that dual blade lunge looks way further away than it normally is, so a lunge mechanic, that is not something that I had even considered. So hey, I'm gonna go ahead and give them props for coming up with that, because it seems just kind of like a given now that you see it, but I don't think anybody was even thinking about this when it came time to, how to fix up Melee weapons, at least from my corner of the community. So I will give them props for coming up with that. To help players understand if they are in range to lunge, we've added a lunge indicator to the crosshair for Melee weapons. This indicator lights up yellow when you can lunge at a target or red when an attack is in progress. When it comes to power potential, the third thing we've reworked is many of the attack sequences of primary attacks. We've made them more responsive, adjusting attack angles, modifying attack ranges. For example, the Dual Blades primary attack is no longer a 3-attack sequence, but instead a 2-attack sequence, but with a new type of attack added to the weapon. Some of these attack sequence changes are buffs, some are small nerfs or adjustments to account for the new functionality of the system. Given all those power increases to Melee, we feel Melee's potential is much better now than it used to be, and hopefully players agree. But this only addresses the power element of Melee. What about those frustration Melee victims experience, and how are we ensuring this extra power is only accessed through skilled play? So first off, the frustration that you're talking about is the inability to open your ears and fucking listen, or to position yourself appropriately. And listen, I get it, it's a skill issue. A lot of people have it, especially the poor suckers that just spend all their time in Kovacs and don't know know how to do anything but aim. Those were the poor orphans of the community. How dare we not cater to them? To offset some of this increased power and reduce the frustration on being on the receiving end of melee attacks, we've introduced two new systems, stamina and precision, that make melee combat more skill-driven. We know stamina systems are a concerning idea for a lot of our melee players, as they feel these type of mechanics are often frustrating in other games. And yeah, I'll just agree with that there. When we all thought of a stamina system, we were thinking, wow, we're not going to be able to swing, and then we're just going to be even more fucking dead in the water than we usually are. I failed it again. But I want to stress that what stamina does in the finals is quite different. Being out of stamina does not reduce damage, does not reduce movement speed, and does not slow attacks. Instead, it acts more of a combo throttle. Our new stamina system controls when the melee player has access to lunges and when they don't. I kind of vibe with that. See, if they're going to add this new lunging mechanic into the game, the stamina system only makes sense to, reduce your ability to use that rather than reduce your ability to be viable in combat. Because let's face it, if you are in a room with a bunch of people and you just run out of stamina on your melee swings and you couldn't swing anymore, you were just going to die. There's no ands, ifs, or buts about that. That completely guts melee. And I'm really glad that they didn't do that, because if they did, I'd be moving to a different game for the season until they turned it back. Whenever the player performs an attack and lunges, their stamina bar is consumed. While out of stamina, players can still attack, run, and do the same damage as normal and so on, but they will not have lunges to help them reach the target, and stamina will gradually regenerate over a short period of time. However, whenever the player lands a precise hit with their melee weapon, more on that in a second, their stamina will immediately refill. A stamina bar showing the player their current stamina is now a part of the melee weapon-specific crosshair we're adding in Season 11. If a player wants to maximize their damage output as a melee user and retain access to these lunges to perhaps help hit a second target, they'll need to manage their stamina and keep scoring precise hits. And that brings me to our second new system that we've added to melee combat, Precision. Precision introduces more aim skill to melee. Previously, any part of a hit sweep with a melee weapon would cause the same amount of damage to an enemy, but with Precision, different parts of the sweep do different amounts of damage. The Precision zone is at the center of the sweep that will cause precise hits that do the maximum amount of damage, with many melee weapons receiving a damage buff compared to Season 10. Any hits made by a sweep that are outside the Precision zone are considered glancing blows and do less damage, with these damage values generally being below the damage values the weapons did in Season 10 and beyond. To help make it clear to players which hits are in and out of the Precision zone, the new melee weapon crosshair shows two vertical lines that communicate the size of the weapon's precision hit zone to make it easier to see. Okay, so now you actually have to aim when you use the melee weapon and not just swing wildly. So RIP to all the sword mains out there. Your swing wild weapon days are over there, buddies. No more swinging wide and just hitting everything that goes around you with the M1 spam on the sword. I never thought I would say these words again, but actual fucking W, Embark. The buffs to damage, lunges, and attacks mentioned above increase the overall power potential of these weapons and better reward melee players for getting close to their targets, but with precision and stamina, melee players are now required to be more deliberate in their actions to access that potential. These systems, along with the changes to lunging, also give us many more additional parameters with which to balance melee combat going forwards, allowing us a greater degree of control to make the weapons feel impactful, but fair. So first thoughts on all of these new systems, I think that they're great. I am not a glazer, and therefore I'm not an Embark partner, and therefore I have not gotten my hands on this at all. I'm learning about this the same time you guys are. But it seems to me like their solution to melee has definitely been a lot more of actually figure out what the problem is, rather than just pump the numbers and just deal with it later. And honestly, I don't think any of us really had any hope that they were going to do anything but pump the numbers. So the fact that they're coming out with all this actually gives me a lot more hope for this season than I had a week ago. Bearing in mind that I still wish that they would just fully reveal the damn thing, but oh well. To make some melee weapons more viable and more engaging to use, it wasn't enough to just rework the melee system. We felt we also needed to take a look and refine some of their secondary functions and make the weapons and their playstyles stand out a bit more. Here's a quick breakdown of some of these main improvements. The riot shield has had its collision update to make it slightly larger and more reliable, as well as more accurate, making it much more effective at blocking bullets now and truly opening up a turtle style of play. It can also now block damage from incoming melee attacks. So the riot shield being able to block melee, like I always wondered why it couldn't just do that, so I mean, hey, there we go. We've also added a shield bash to the riot shield, which can be used to knock back nearby enemies. This attack is triggered by pressing the attack button while the shield is raised. Ooh, okay, alright. I've been a D1 riot shield hater the whole time I've played this game, and I might try to play it now, just being completely honest. Like, the riot shield was so boring. Like, the only thing about the riot shield that you could use was just your 45-degree angle fitness gram pacer test to go ahead and insta-block every bullet that gets shot at you, and now there's some actual skill and a playstyle to be used with the riot shield. Y'all know that I am not an Embark glazer by any stretch of the imagination, but they are kind of cooking with that. To offset this increase in defensive power and control, the riot shield damage has been slightly reduced to compensate, and their movement speed when the shield is raised has been slightly slowed. These changes create a very new feel to riot shield play, which is much closer to the intent we initially had for the weapon. I mean, hey, I'm not going to argue with these changes. They sound pretty great. I mean, it's going to be annoying as hell if a riot shield player tries to bap you off the cash out while you're stealing it, but hey, just go ahead and shoot them now. Now, if a dual blades player presses the attack button while their blades are raised for blocking, they will lunge forward a short distance and perform the cross attack. Okay, that's nuts. Yo. All right, we all know our favorite dual blades player, Jakaru. He's fucking eaten this season. The spear spinning secondary attack has now been made more responsive, but also requires slightly more skill to use now. When the attack is triggered, it will consume stamina and perform a single spin attack. Yo, they fixed the spin! Yo, they finally fixed the spear spin. We're getting that diamond spear next season. I don't care what it takes. The rest of that is just how the stamina system plays with the spear, yada, yada, yada. Basically, you can still do the 3-hit spin if you want to hold down the button, but if you only want to do one spin, you just tap it. And to everybody who out there who was like, oh, I'm not going to get to throw the spear now, cry about it. And the light sword has had some of its prior rotational constraints removed or reduced on its secondary lunge attack, as we have now added more ways in which to balance its power. So my guess is that the sword is going to get an overall nerf, but they're going to unclamp the lunge on it. So all in all, a lot of these changes to the secondary functions of the melee weapon seemed more aimed at making melee more dynamic in its use, rather than just being a one-size-fits-most approach to them all. Now, they did not mention the dagger or the sledgehammer in this, so I'm a little worried about what they're going to do with both of those, because I feel like they should just tell us, considering that they told us all but just those two. So I don't know, maybe they didn't make any adjustments to them and that's why we're not hearing about them, but I'm going to await with a puckered asshole until I see it for myself. The last thing we've made a change to the melee system for in Season 11 is one aimed at further reducing the frustration of non-melee players often feel when a melee player gets on top of them. In those scenarios, players feel like they can't easily locate the enemy or have no way to easily disengage from the fight, and this is a fair complaint. No the fuck it's not. Look, I'm gonna go ahead and die on this hill, but I don't care. If you're dying to melee players constantly, just move, okay? Unless you're a heavy player, in which case, sure, you really don't have the mobility to outrun a melee player. But if you're playing any of the other classes, just move. Melee players should win the majority of the time when up against a gun user at close range, true, but allowing the gun user at least some chance to perform a well-executed counter and create space would create an engagement rather than a foregone conclusion. I really fucking hate that they're right about that. I mean, look, I still think that a melee user should kill you like 99% of the time if they get up in your face because you failed the litmus test of not letting them get in your face. To try and address this, we've updated how quick melee works to make it a more integral part of the melee system. Quick melee has had its damage reduced slightly and has had stamina added to it. In this case, stamina does not control the lunge component, but instead grants quick melee access to a kick attack that can be used to push nearby enemies away from the player. This knockback only occurs if the player has stamina when performing a quick melee attack though, and that stamina is always consumed on use and is not regenerated by scoring a hit. Any quick melee attack performed without a target or without stamina will be the traditional swing of the elbow. Okay, so this new type of quick melee attack provides players with an option to counter melee attackers when they get too close, as well as offering potential counters to items like the winch claw. At the same time, we've taken the opportunity to reduce quick melee's damage as a broader balancing measure to reduce the number of attack plus quick melee combos that can make balancing a weapon's breakpoints more restrictive for us as a design team, not having to account so heavily for a burst of 40 damage.
Almost a third of Light's health.
Will give us greater control over the balancing of some more spiky weapons. Okay, so first and foremost, fuck that. This whole blog post so far has been good except this part where they're just like, oh yeah, no, less tech. Like they just had to inject that into this somehow. Now, as far as a quick melee now being a kick though, I do think that that's going to be interesting, not just for melee players, but for anybody that gets close to someone, because now you could potentially freaking Sparta kick someone off of a roof. That would be interesting. Let's say someone's playing the riot shield, okay? You could shield bash them, shockwave over to them, kick them back, shockwave again, and then just shield bash them and basically just bully them around the map. I gotta say, that sounds like a fun time. So who the hell knows? Of course, this could also end up being hell in a handbasket if that kick ends up being overpowered. And we're going to have to see what the quick melee damage got reduced down to. But like, sure, quick melee was used to, you know, get one-shot combos on a couple of weapons for sure. But quick melee was more so your only means of defense if you got caught reloading. Like, I'm sorry, but how many times have you been in a game and you've been caught reloading and you didn't have time to do anything but try to throw in 2 quick melees to then go ahead and get the kill to save your life, okay? It's not just something that gets used as a part of tech. It's something that gets used as a part of the overall sandbox. And with them doing this, I really hope that they've implemented this well, or that they at least didn't nerf quick melee so much that it's going to become impossible for you to get a kill with it now. So like I said, initial thoughts to all of this is that this is a hell of a lot more than I thought they were going to end up doing for the melee rework, okay? A balance pass on the melee weapons is good. It definitely needed. Stamina system where we can now access lunges, that's also good. Rewarding melee players for actually being able to hit what they're aiming at and not just swing wildly, cough, sword mains, cough. That's a W there. And reworking some of those secondary functions, big W, especially when it comes to the spear. Yo, I'm not kidding you, we're getting that diamond spear this season. I don't care what it takes. The one part where I am feeling kind of anxious about this though is that quick melee change. You know, it's not going to just affect melee encounters, it's also going to affect every other encounter you have in the game. Not to mention that they didn't mention how fast that kick melee is going to recharge. So what's to say that you can't just kick someone and then by the time they run back to you, your kick is already recharged again and you just kick them again? Like, if that's the case and we're just juggling melee players, that would kill this whole thing and I'd be going back to finding a new game to play for a season. But no, so if this ends up as good as I'm hoping it will, now that I've read all this potentially has the chance to be a very, very good season. Keep in mind, we still don't know anything else about what's coming with this season other than we're going to get a new map, which we still haven't seen anything of yet. So they absolutely have the opportunity to completely mess it up when it comes to the balancing and everything else, but we're just going to have to wait and see what they give us on Thursday. But anywho, that is going to be it for today's quick video. I just wanted to go over these changes the day that they came out with you guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already for more finals content. Let me know down in the comments, how are you feeling about this melee rework? Are you a salty FCAR user that doesn't like that now melee users are a bit more powerful? If so, be sure to complain about it down below, and I will see you all in the next episode. Bye, yeah.